Coming to you live, special edition of Straight Off the Pipe podcast. Take it away, Mike.
Well, good morning for those of you in Canada, and good evening for Rob Schremp across the pond. Where is home right now for you?
I live in Riga, Latvia. So
Riga, Latvia.
Yeah, just in the Baltic. We're in the Baltic Sea. So one of my stops on my tour was in the KHL play here. So met my wife here, and now we've settled down here.
Probably exactly where you thought you'd end up when you were growing up in New York, right?
Yeah, just how I drew it up, man. Just how I dreamed it up.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. So you met your wife out there when you played in the KHL?
Yeah. I mean, so we met, and it was kind of weird. It was a small window. I only played here for 4 or 5 months, so it was actually, one of those things. Everything happens for a reason. And met her, and we stuck together. And now we're married. Have a kid. I have a daughter. She's just turned 4, so it's been a blessing.
Awesome.
I feel pretty blessed to have you on the show today. I heard you talking on a different podcast about, nobody really accused Michael Jordan of being a hot dog. So today I'm wearing kind of my Jordan hoodie. Did you pave the way for a kid like in Anaheim there, Trevor Zegras? I mean, were you the Zegras before the Zegras?
I think pretty similar to creative mind and creative, skills with the game. And Trevor's gotten to a place where he's so comfortable with the puck. You just start doing amazing things. Sometimes people see those things like, I can't believe you did that in a game, but I don't think that really registers once you get that comfortable with the puck and you have that kind of feel with the stick. And I think we're on the same level. And I think, I was just doing it 20 years ago when it wasn't so popular and there wasn't Instagram and social media to sort of build, I guess, how do you say it, sort of support the play and get behind it and have that positive, reaction to it. Back then it was more like scouts in the stands and they didn't like it so much. So it was a little bit different crowd that I was doing it for, per se.
Yeah, I'm curious because you've been doing some like side work or full-time work coaching, right? And or training kids, if I'm not mistaken, with 44 Vision. Is that what you've been doing? Like working?
Yeah. Mentoring players and working with players through their video. Obviously, when you're in the same area, you can go on the ice and have that mentorship. But with the video stuff, and especially the way today's game is, it's all the technology's come a long way. There's a lot of cameras and there's cameras in a lot of rinks. So these games are, I see it as a big resource, whether it's a U12 player or an NHL player. So I think that's when I retired. I thought that would be a great avenue to kind of go down and help the players see it that way. And kind of a light bulb went off for me. I was playing in Salzburg. Guys were on the bus and they were watching Fortnite on YouTube. And then they literally pulled their system up on the bus and started doing, kind of reenacting what they saw on YouTube. So it's kind of like, man, that's exactly like game film. For me, at least, in my opinion, it's studying that space, studying what's going on in the area. And the thing with film is it used to kind of be they'd show they'd show the all-stars or the better players and say, look at this guy. Now you have the ability as a 13, 14-year-old to see yourself in that space and study that, right? So I think that's very powerful. And it gives a chance for the players and the kids to build that picture memory in the space. And I'm a firm believer that helps with reaction time, processing things much faster and executing much faster. So it used to kind of just be a resource when you got to junior or pro. And now, we have the ability to do that again with kids that are at a certain level. There's obviously, there's a certain level you got to be at to be able to use film to execute per se. And there's been some instances where it's more like I watch the film like, okay, this player needs more like the, one-on-one skating help, or that development would be more beneficial than studying film. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was kind of curious, like when you're working with some of those kids, do you, onto the Zegras thing, are you promoting that type of creativity now versus, it seems like they used to suppress it more when you were probably growing up in the game, right? And I think why not promote it, right? I mean, it's fun to watch, like kids doing some of the things you were doing back then. But I think probably you got actually some criticism for it at the time, right? I mean, I remember that there was, times where people would think you were a hot dog, right? But you were just being creative and doing your thing. But now there's still, and even Zegras, that goal, some people criticized, right? And some people loved it. I'm in the love category myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think my youth kind of growing up, I started having that creativity around 12 years old. So again, I hear a lot of it, and my mom and dad sitting in the stands would hear it the most. I was on the ice, and the players saying something would never bother me. That's great. That means I've gotten to them. But for them, they'd be in the stands and they'd be hearing those rumblings and the kind of chirping from some of it was important people with the clipboards and saying precisely what you just said, like hot dog, cocky, blah blah blah. Like think of the terms that they used. There's one story though that kind of stuck out to me. It was great. Mark Hunter, he was sitting at a game watching me when I was going to be traded from Mississauga my 6th year, and I had a pregame warm-up thing in warm-ups that was partially for my hand-eye coordination, my feel of the puck, and it was also part entertainment. I knew that people that came early and watched warm-ups, I remember being a kid going to watch warm-ups, and that was big entertainment for me. I remember watching the Detroit Red Wings warm up, and it was sick. And it wasn't so much what I was doing with the puck, like that trick stuff, but it was, it was so unified and and just how they flew, or like how the flow of the warm up was. Something about it stuck out to me. And, for me as a player, then again, that was part of my routine was playing lacrosse with the puck, batting the puck in the air, kicking it off my skate. And then afterwards, you can see a kid that was super excited. I'd go and give him the puck. So it's part entertainment, part of my warm up. But Mark Hunter was there for one of those, and a scout started, giving the spiel about, look at that punk, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no. Do you actually know how hard it is to do that? You know what I mean? Do you know how skilled it is to actually be able to do what he just did? Like, I think you're thinking of it the wrong way. So that was one of those instances that stuck out to me. And Mark Hunter was always, he's great to me. And he was I guess call him a fan of mine. He stuck up for me and realized what it took to actually do that. And then there's, part of it is if somebody doesn't like it, they tone it down a little bit. But, there's part of the game that's, like I talked about Jordan, I just thought that he was super successful. Not to say that I was anywhere near Jordan, but that's what my idol was. And that's kind of who I grew up watching. So emulating that athlete was what I was driven to do, starting from, 10, 11 years old. So I think it's important. I think it's important to have that entertainment value, that interaction piece. It's super important. Instead of being the humble, whatever you want to call it, it's not humble, but it's like, if you do it like what I was doing, I was not considered humble. It was like punkish, right? But it's, it's kind of weird. It's such a weird argument because I'm not even in the argument. I'm on the ice.
Good point.
Michael would just burn you any way he could, if it was just blowing by somebody, that's what he would do. But if he needed to hypnotize somebody with a dribble, he could do that too. And, so you've got all that skill set to be able to do all that. I really like what you've started to put out there, like some of those videos that, you broke down that goal where Connor dismantled the Rangers and, Leon's passing and that. That's phenomenal stuff, Rob. I look at that and it's like I'm watching like a millennial version of Howie Meeker all over again. I mean, it's phenomenal what you're doing there. And I love those. And, the Oilers could probably use you as a video coach. How many games of theirs do you actually get to watch? Or do you just watch kind of bits and pieces?
I watch bits and pieces. It's so late for me over here.
Yeah.
It's tough to stay up and watch full games. So just watch as much as I can until I kind of conk out. Having a 4-year-old wears you down to the course of the day too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the morning comes 3, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. Sometimes comes pretty tough. But I appreciate the feedback. And I remember the first one I did, it was random. I just wrote a note on it. I think it was the Lowry. I was against Winnipeg, and he roasted a guy in the neutral zone. I just saw it. I saw it quick, and was like, I can't believe how fast that happened. And it really wasn't a huge mistake by Lowry. It was literally one mistake with the footwork. And from that one mistake, it opened up a huge gate. And you can kind of, for me, I saw it the first time and could see where Connor started kind of calculating and mapping out his route. And then the one mistake he picked apart. And then I just wrote my opinion on that. And the fan was like, can you break that down? So I did. And I thought it was, the idea with those is just kind of gives people a chance to really read into those instead of it having to be so much like, what's the right word? Observing it and seeing what everybody else did. I wanted to like help break down the details and show the calculations of what Connor sees and how he gets to where he gets, not so much of like just talking about how fast he was going and how he scored the goal. There's probably 4, 5, 6 other details that it takes to understand fully. Because that's also the other thing, in my opinion, a lot of the kids nowadays, they don't watch full games. They watch just highlights and they see the end. They don't see the, kind of the whole piece and what it, what the other details, what the other ingredients are to execute some of this stuff. So that's where you see they try to go out the next couple of days or whatever after those highlight reel goals and they're trying to duplicate it, but they do it in the wrong place. So even stuff like with the shootout, you'll see players or kids come down and do the exact move they saw in the highlight, and it's the wrong time. The goalie's not even biting or the goalie's not even moving. So it really tells you kind of indicator. That's the indicator that they don't know why that works. They just saw it and they're trying to do it again.
Yeah, a read and react kind of thing. When you break down like Connor's plays, as a basketball player, like I was a dual sport athlete when I was growing up too. So, you're standing outside the 3-point line, you jab step somebody. If they don't bite on it, then you explode. If they do back off, then you've got your 3-point shot. I mean, you're kind of doing the same thing with with Connor and those plays and Leon with his backhand sauces, 90 feet down the ice, the amazing ability there. Connor, you see him and you see the explosive speed and everybody recognizes that. But I mean, you start to get into like his hockey IQ being kind of off the charts with what he's looking for when he's using that speed too. And that's so amazing that like, it's almost like you have kind of his mind a little bit and give us a window to what he's doing there. And I think it's just unbelievable. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, like more of those, please. What is your like day-to-day over there like now? Like how much hockey are you still playing?
I'm not playing anymore. I'm doing a lot of this mentoring. I just got back from Slovenia. I'm mentoring 2 players there that are 2 kids. There's one, Grega Posler and Tarek, struggle his last name, Mukovic. It's Slovenian, so I'm working on my pronunciation. But they're 2 kids I had at camp last summer in Bled, Slovenia, and they were at the camp, and I just saw something in them. And then through the course of the year, I've been keeping an eye on them, and now they're at a stage where at their age level, they're 17 and 16, just trying to mentor them and help them kind of take that next step in their game. And that's something I'm kind of taking on right now, is that mentorship role. And fly, like for me, I flew in for them for this thing. I had a U18 tournament this past week where they took on France and Hungary. It was supposed to be Italy, but Italy had to back out. Came down there a week before and skated them, and then watched the games and kind of saw what in person just to get a gauge of it. Outside of that, I've been doing a lot of video. So I watch a lot of game film, and it's a range from pro all the way down. I got a kid, Christopher Pinko. He's a U11. He's a sick player. It's been fun to have that huge, big range of, players per se from the age ranges. You see the trends, you see the different, I see a lot of Zegras or Sveshnikovs or Lacrosse, whatever you want to call them, Michigan attempts at that age. It's coming, and the kids are starting to see it, and it's a lot of fun for them. So it's been great to watch that and see the kind of the development of the game, the development of the skill. And what I will say is, watching this big range of players per se in the age ranges, it's weird how the skill has come so far. I think kids at like 14, 15 years old now are more skilled than I'd say half the NHL players were 20 years ago. I'm not saying they're better. I'm saying they're more skilled. The things like their edges, their skating, their handling of the puck. But what does stick out to me is the hockey IQ part is a little bit low, and where to insert these high-end skills, and where, big thing for me is about how you're attacking the net. You got to be planning that out in my opinion, when it starts in the neutral zone, you really start to plan your attack there, and it's starting all the way from back there to your attack at the net. So mapping this out and seeing where you're going to start to attack and your trajectory towards the net comes into play. What you'll see now is someone goes up the ice with unbelievable speed, unbelievable hands, and then the next thing you know, they're standing in the corner. They have no attack on net, so that skill didn't really benefit them. It just looked better than it would have 20 years ago.
So I'd love to get your opinion on some Oilers relevant things, but I'm kind of more curious now that you've been talking about this and the kids and their talent level and how that's changed. What do you see in the game, that needs to change, right? Like to adapt to what's coming up. Like, do you think that what we watch in the NHL today, 10 years from now, is going to be a completely different product than it is today? Like, I mean, we're obviously seeing more of the Zegras and Svechnikovs and that in the league. But defenders are going to have to change their game a little bit. I know that's not your, area, but, what's going to have to change in the NHL to accommodate this? And do you like the direction it's going? Is that something you prefer?
I think it's the direction in 10 years. I think it's going to the game's getting so fast. It's either going to have to be a little bit more, in my opinion, more of a hybrid from the old school game. I think it's getting very fast. And I'd say concern is the walls aren't moving. The speed's just getting faster. So it's something along the lines of that. And, the bigger ice is not to say the European ice is the solution, but maybe a hybrid in that the size of the rink is a little bit bigger. Just add some space so the speed can it's getting really fast, and these races to the dot for the offset or for the face icings, it's just one edge slip away from being trouble. So I think there needs to be either a little bit more of it, again, hybrid of the rules. Some of the, I don't want to say that the hooking and slashing and that stuff is hooking, holding, slashing, or whatever you want to call it. Not so much that, but maybe the interference where you can kind of give your defenseman or your teammate a second more, go back to get the pucks. And also what we're seeing too is a lot of the headshots. A lot of these headshots are not malicious. It's almost like they don't have a choice. If you don't finish the hit, then you'd be in trouble for not finishing the hit, and the guy would have a wide open chance. So that's my opinion. I think maybe the rink dimensions might have to change. And I think what's coming in the next 10 years as far as the development of the youth is, again, the skill level is coming high. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game because it's starting to happen, right? We're getting more and more lacrosse, and we're getting more and more stretch off goals, high-end skill stuff. It's less of the barbaric and grinded out brawls kind of hockey. It's a lot more skill. So I don't know what the average fights are now. Would you guys know that stat? But it's super low. I think it's like 0.25.
We haven't had a fight with the Oilers in a while now, so I'd say, yeah, it's not very. And every team, obviously, it depends on who they've got on their team. But there's a couple guys that can drop the mitts on the Oilers, but they don't do it very often anymore. Which I think would have been unheard of, 10, 15 years ago if you had two star players on your team, right? That would be the team where you'd probably have the most fights. Guys, like Connor got hit the other day, mid ice, and a couple cross checks from Yamamoto, but that was about it. I mean, nobody dropped the mitts. Not like it. I think a lot of cases that would be the case right away, right?
Is that a Hathaway hit?
Yeah, the Hathaway hit. Great hit, by the way, but. And Connor just never gets hit like that, right? So I don't know if maybe everybody in the arena is probably still in shock, right? Yeah. How many times do you see him get hit like that? Almost never, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things, this is kind of Oilers relevant, and something we've been thinking about. Obviously, we've got a new coach, which could say almost any day of the week in oil country. But I'm curious, if the first time behind the bench, Jay Woodcroft comes in and we see a noticeable difference in the time allocation for Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, play a lot less minutes, a little bit equal across the lineup. in your mind, like, was that maybe one of the drawbacks of the Tippett style, was just asking too much of McDavid and Draisaitl? I mean, you're a skilled player, so when you, like, especially in London when you're putting up all those points, right? I mean, was there a point at which you could look back and say maybe I was playing too much one of these games, or I, like, in my mind, the way I look at it, and I was never a skilled player, I was always one of the role players, right? Like, if you only played me 7 minutes a night, it was hard for me to get in the game, right? And hard for me to do my job, right? Whereas, I think if, anybody wants to play lots of minutes, but does the reverse sort of happen, and that you can't get those role players doing what they need to do and help out the skilled players? Like, what's your thought on that? I mean, just the time allocation piece.
Yeah, it's tricky because, as you know, McDavid, he's very dominant, and it seems like he never runs out of fuel. There's been a few games where it's been, he's been stifled a little bit and probably gotten frustrated in the game, and you can see it. You just keep trying and not succeeding, and that's, you'd have to flag that game and be able to find that sort of tell during the game to pull him back and say, tonight's not, let's give him less minutes or whatever. So that'd be on the spot. But overall, he's so dominant. He's such a superstar, and he's so driven, passionate. I think he wants those minutes. The problem is, and I'll be honest with you, I love it. I mean, there's not much of that anymore. It is more, you check the time slots for all the teams, and the shifts the top forwards are playing 17, 18 minutes, and a big night for 40 minutes these days is like 21 minutes. You get, Draisaitl and McDavid, some nights 25, 26. You don't see it very much anymore, but I personally enjoy seeing it and watching them because they're so entertaining. But the problem is, in the old days, those guys were so dominant. They would have such control of the game. It'd be out of reach, where in today's game, 4 lines are like you don't have the fighters anymore. You don't have the pure meat. It's like pretty much most teams have 4 lines of guys that can all skate, can all play, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit more balanced that way. So then when you're asking your third, fourth line guys, like you said, to chuck down maybe, whatever, let's say 7 to 10 minutes, they're not as effective as the other team's third, fourth lines are, because they're more into the game, more invested per se, more minutes. I think that's maybe where the imbalance comes in. So it's tough because they are so dynamic and they are so dominant when they're on the ice. Their numbers are through the roof. They have the puck all the time. So it's a tricky balance. But in my opinion, I selfishly, I just love watching those guys on the ice because they make plays. Every time they touch the puck and seem to make a play, and it's a sick play. It's something that most guys can't do. So you want more and more of it. But I think over the course of a long season, it's going to have to be somewhere, a better balance per se, because it does get long and the playoffs only get harder.
Do you have a favorite moment, Rob, in your hockey career?
We'd have to go all the way back to junior, to be honest with you. Mem Cup was the pinnacle. It was amazing. It was a great year and learned a ton that year. Played with some great players, learned from a great coach. Learned a lot that year. And then obviously to finish off with a championship, there was no better feeling. And it never got as good as that per se.
Yeah. I mean, the Memorial Cup, is something else, right? Like, it is, it's pretty difficult to win. I mean, when you think you got to get out of your league, and then you got to win a single game to win it all. Like, it's just, to me, it's, we talk about how difficult the Stanley Cup is. Obviously it is, but Memorial Cup's got to be pretty equal in terms of, the level of competition against level of competition, and just how many leagues are going after it, how many teams are going after it, and one gets the, the ultimate. And, you rarely think about the league champions, right? Like who the OHL champions are that year. It's all about, who won the Memorial Cup, right? Like, I grew up in Western Canada, and I don't know, other than when the Oil Kings won the one year, I don't think I could tell you who the WHL champions are, but I remember all the Memorial Cup champions, right? Like, Such a difficult process. I was thinking about that, favorite memory. You must have like a collection of pucks with the tape around them and the markers marked down. What's the big puck in your collection that you're proudest of?
Definitely the first NHL goal against Tim Thomas was a huge moment, and awesome. It was great. Took a long time to get it. But it was amazing. I remember, it wasn't really how I drew up scoring my first show goal either. I seen it, 1,000 times going bar down, but it was, I bounced it off his ass from behind the net. So anyway, I take it how you get it at that level. But I remember I scored and I went crazy. But went celebration. I was so excited. There's so much emotion. I went big lap, fist pump, and then I basically hurtled into Mark Streit's hands. I almost broke his back. I landed right in his arms. So it was like a scene out of Dirty Dancing. But that moment was special. I've been through a lot, and it took me a long time to get there and stay there. And that moment was really special. My mom and dad got to watch it, so it was even more special. Yeah.
Yeah. Does stripping up the puck and doing what you can do, or what you used to do, like at what stage did that come? Because you weren't doing like just a basic Michigan behind the net. I mean, you could do that on the fly. My son, he's 14 and he's starting to kind of be able to pick it up a little bit behind the net, but it's a process, right? I mean, you could basically do it on the fly. Like, when did that happen? Same time or? Yeah,
I played a lot of lacrosse as a kid growing up, and that was the off-season sport for me. Played probably since I was 8 to 12, roughly. I played so 4 years, and I remember it was like the summer, turning 11 years old. I just started to kind of think like, why not do it with a hockey puck? And started doing it with a hockey puck. I saw the Michigan. I saw that, so I learned that. And then again, I started thinking like, why not play lacrosse with it? And I just started doing it, and it worked. Like, it just literally stuck to I cradled it like a lacrosse stick. And I was kind of like, probably didn't say that, but now that at the time at 11, but I was like, holy shit, like it worked. Like it was like cool, and it stuck to my stick. And then I just kind of then it went to like just pure kind of creativity, imagination with it, whatever I could do with it, and it would stick to and I knew how to like cradle. That's how you dodge. How I was kind of doing it over my head with a hockey stick is how you dodge a check in lacrosse. You roll your hands over your head or over the check, and that's how you get around it, and then you bring it back to your hands. So I just put two and two together, and then just started doing it. So I remember going to band and major tryouts, and I was a 12-year-old playing with 14, 15-year-olds, and I pulled it off. And it was kind of when I first got there, it was kind of like, oh, why is this 12-year-old here, sort of thing. And then I started doing this stuff, and the words started changing. It wasn't that so much, but, and that was just, for me, that was kind of the moment it made me realize that like, it was pretty cool. And it really, it did draw attention, so to speak. People liked it. Some people didn't like it, but, so a lot of people did like it. It was just different. It was unique. And I thought for me, I was pretty good with the puck, handled the puck really well. And this was just kind of elevating that and kind of challenging my abilities. And for me, it's more objective than people think. It's not it's very entertaining, very showy, but also for the Michigan side of it, how else would you put the puck in the net from behind the net? Mm-hmm. You could bank it off them. But then if you talk about risk and this and that, and, whatever the argument's going to be, if you miss it, if you try to bank it off the goalie's, back of his leg or off his pants or off the back of his shoulders and miss, that would be a breakout. If you try at Michigan or Svechnikov, whatever era we want to call it, I think it's out of respect. It's to Michigan because, Mike Legg pulled it off back in the 90s. And
yep,
he was really one that opened all of our eyes to it. So it's tough to call it to Svechnikov, even though I respect his skill, but it's Mike Legg's goal. And it wasn't actually Michigan's goal. It was Mike Legg. The Michigan, it was Mike Legg. So we should always preference him in it.
Yeah.
But if you drop it back there, it's 200 feet away from your net. Who cares? That's how I kind of see it a little bit too. Like, how else would you get it in the goal? And if you mess it up, who cares? Then start the cycle. And then I see it in the middle of the ice coming down on one-on-ones or even on odd man rushes. Like, when you take it up and pick it up on your stick and you put it on your hip, when you put it on your hip, your reach and your range becomes further. It becomes further away from the D, and it becomes a different trajectory at him. Versus if you come at him and you're stick handling one-on-one, the puck's kind of either sort of in front of you and you're trying to challenge a triangle. You know, think about that visual versus having this on your hip and having it up in the air. And if you would envision that, think about it from the defenseman's perspective. Like you're looking at a guy coming down, stick handling right at you. You got him, you see the puck, you see his chest. Cancel that. Guy comes down, scoops it up on his stick, however you want to scoop it up. He's now got it on his hip. Like, what do? You can't really, there's not much you can do. And then, you know, whatever, some guys get mad, they're going to swing their stick. Okay, if you slash the guy, it's a penalty. You can't spear the guy. Spear or slash is kind of the only way you're going to get a handle on that. So those draw penalties. If he doesn't do that, then you're, as a player, walking in on him, and your trajectories on the net all change. You can throw like a lacrosse stick. So objectively looking at it, it made a lot of sense to me. It always did, but it was more defending that it's, you know, it's hot doggish or cocky or whatever the negativity was. I always saw it differently. I saw it in that regard because it just made sense to me. And then to flip it around for entertainment value, people love it. You know, fans love it. They love the creativity of it. They love the difficulty of it. It's not easy to do for the average Joe. So it's a different dynamic to the game. I think it's not just about showmanship either. So it is objective in some way if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I want to take this back to an Edmonton thing because you spent some time in Edmonton. Your memory of the city itself, like a positive memory that you have of the city itself, was there a place that you'd go to hang out that you really enjoyed or something? I mean, you weren't, I guess you didn't play a ton when you were in Edmonton, but there's got to be a couple of positives there. Where were you holed up when you were in town? Like, where did you stay? Was it hotel, or did you bill it with somebody or stay at somebody's place?
Most of the time I was there, I was in the Sutton Place downtown. I'm not sure if it's still the same.
Yeah, it's still Sutton Place. Yeah, I've stayed there.
So that was most of the time. And then, one year I had enough of that, and I stayed with a buddy of mine, Blaine Stewart. He was an awesome guy. He ran an establishment there in White Ave, and he was just a great dude. And I had a surgery one year, and I had no one there. Nobody was there. Most of the guys were off into their summer stuff and summer training and elsewhere. So he took me in, and I stayed at his house most of the time, and we got together and played some golf, and he made it really enjoyable for me. He was a great friend. So, I didn't spend much time there. It was training camps really. And then the 1 year I had surgery. So, ton of time. And especially on those days, it was kind of budget, right? So it was Earl's and I think Joey Tomatoes, we thought it was super, it's a really good restaurant. I'm not shitting on it, but it's, we thought it was super classy and, but that's mostly where I spent our time. Danny Sibrat and myself, we go there and get sushi. And even then, as coming out of junior, we thought that was classy. We were eating sushi. But the 1 year, the Stanley Cup year, 2006, we got a chance to be Black Aces there. And that was something really eye-opening about the city and like how it embraced the team. And obviously we all know the stories of the 80s and what they had and how the city was. But that being experience that and seeing how the town, the city came alive, and we weren't part of it. We were Black Aces, so we weren't really playing, but being in the building, even on the catwalk for the national anthem, the whole building shaking, it was pretty electric. And it was something that was like, this would be awesome to win here and play for this team and have that kind of energy. London, we had 10,000 fans, but that was like I think it was 20,000 fans in the Rexall, and the building was literally shaking. So, and then during the week leading up to the games, the city was buzzing. It was a great experience to see, and it's obviously a passionate town. So that stuck out to me a lot, and I was lucky to be around for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine what that would have felt like. What a disappointing end to that series, but. We had George Larocque on a couple of years ago, and he was talking about how, the dressing room was shaking. It was so loud, like, just how intense it was. And I remember, it was like a ghost town outside once game time started. everybody was at a set, and the city was just, it was phenomenal. Yeah, it was just from a fan's perspective. I can only imagine being up in the catwalk. And Rexall, although have you been to the new Rogers yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't been back. I've been in Europe for a long time, so I haven't seen the new place.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. it's a little bit different than the old Rexall, but Rexall was great. I spent a lot of games over there, played there a couple times too, and really enjoyed it. But the everything at the new Rogers is different now. I mean, as you could imagine.
Yeah, I mean, they did the room. They renovated the room. I think it was right before my last year with the team. But my last training camp with the team. It was really nice. They upgraded everything. It was obviously something that needed to be done. There was the old room was great and had that history to it and the feel to it. But everything's modernizing and these new buildings that were going up. It was tough for them to compete with the free agency market with the old school room and selling it on this, who had been in there, so to speak. And it needed to be revamped, and they did. And it was actually phenomenal. So they made the place really great for the players. And I can only imagine what they did to the new rink. And I haven't been there. I think you have, from the sounds of it, obviously. And it's great for the players to have that place to call home and somewhere to be, excited to go to. And, that stuff matters. You spend a lot of time there as a player. So it's part of, kind of attaching these emotions to come into work, so to speak. And it's awesome. They get the new building. And I think it's right down by I don't know. It's down by where the Sutton place was, isn't it?
Yeah. It's right there. In fact, I was going to bring that up when you said the Sutton. The guys stay at the Marriott now, which is significantly nicer. There's, a really nice executive level, and I've stayed at both, and I'll probably stay at the Marriott before I stay at the Sutton again. Of course, the Sutton, it's an older, classier hotel. Like back in the day, it would have been nice, but it's certainly, it's a little bit dated in comparison. So it's too bad you missed out on that, but still, hey, yeah, and you can pedway it over to the game, right? Like they just walk right. In fact, Caleb Jones, I went with, I was staying there after a game and ran into him as we were both heading onto the elevator. And they obviously had a floor dedicated to the team. I was on the executive floor once, and Ken Holland had breakfast behind me in the little free brunch area or whatever, and I did try to listen in to see if he had any tidbits I could put on the podcast, but he didn't let. You'll find this interesting, Rob. He was talking to, I don't know who his friend was that he was having breakfast with, but I was snooping in on the conversation, and the conversation got to whether or not he would encourage a kid to play NCAA or CHL. And Ken Holland said NCAA, which is not surprising given his desire to let kids play a little bit longer in the development leagues. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, being obviously a OHL graduate.
I think it's come such a long ways, NCAA, and I think the new era of NHL really kind of mirrors that type of hockey. It's kind of the same, where I think maybe back when I was growing up, it was the CHL was kind of so similar to NHL. The NCAA was so different, in my opinion. That's how I see it. I could be, that was how I saw it. And you go to the CHL to kind of get acclimated to that type of hockey, that physical, tough, a lot of games, travel type of hockey, versus NCAA was less games, and it was not so much like, the grind of a CHL season. But now I think it's really balanced out. And I think, I don't think the schedule has gotten any more games per se in the NCAA, but the type of hockey that's in the NHL is much more balanced out how NCAA is. It's not so much CHL is going to 100% get you better or more prepared per se than NCAA. We're seeing it. And those years of development are huge, because now we have, in my opinion, so much player development, so much individual work is going into this game now. You know, you go to the CHL, it's tough. You got to be at a certain level. You got to be ready to make that jump mentally, physically. When I say make that jump to pro, because your window is small. If you get a top couple round draft pick, you're going to play at 16. If you're not, you can start at 17. And then when you hit 20, there's only 3 overagers allowed. So you see how much that window shrinks and shrinks. If you're a kid that's going to go to play in the CHL, then, you know, you're making your statement that you're ready. If you want to carry on with hockey, I know you can go play, I think it's CIS hockey afterwards, but once you go and you take that eligibility away, you know, you're kind of strapped. And you also have windows after where if you want to go play pro, you get like 2 years to play, and then you got to decide if you're going to take your package from CHL. So again, all those variables going into it, it's kind of comes back to pressure on the player and deciding on, you know, are you going to go play in the CHL? Are you going to play in the CHL because your buddy did and you think it's cool and it's awesome and this and that? Like that's probably not your answer. If you're thinking of going to the CHL because you want to take your shot at pro and you're ready to challenge and make that push inside that window, you know, that's up for you as a player. But the days are over where it's kind of pick one or the other. I think both have tons of benefits. And I think NCAA actually has more benefits with the bigger window of opportunity as far as development and being an older age. I saw something along the lines today where they were comparing Cale Makar to Victor Hedman in their first X amount of games. And, you know, the difference being is Cal came in at 23 and Victor came in at 18. I mean, it's such a difference, you know, a huge gap. You think of those age, even as us as individuals, just as humans, from the time you're 18, how much stupid stuff he did compared to 23. Maybe
not me, but
yeah, of course. None of us, but other people for sure. Just even as maturity goes, you know, and it's such a bigger window to kind of develop and get there as a human, and also with your development. You know, there's a lot to be said about, you know, your physical development really doesn't start until you're 19 years old. And you think about that in the CHL, you're hitting you got one more year left, maybe, if you play overager. For me, I left at 9. I played my 19 year and then I went and played pro, right? So just as I started developing as a man, jumped in with the men. With college, you're getting there, and that's, you know, if you go at 18, that's your second year in school. You hit the weights really hard. You got that, you know, you don't have as many games, so there's that room for development. There's enough to be said about either lane, but I don't think it's one or the other. It's really depending on where the player is at in their development, both mentally and physically as a teenage kid.
You bring up Cale Makar, and it almost seems like there's a bit of a new avenue too. You know, guys playing in the AJHL and then, you know, getting seen there to NCAA and going about it that way. You know, used to be if you were a junior A player, chances of becoming a pro were pretty limited, but now it's opening up more and more. Kind of have a local product here that played for, like, I live in Grand Prairie, and Carter Rowney kind of played for the Storm a little bit here, and then NCAA, and then you know, spent some time in Pittsburgh and Anaheim. So I think that's good. I think the more ways that you know, people can get exposed and get seen, the better for the game. Not just everybody coming out of you know, CHL hockey anymore.
Yeah, I think there's so much. Again, there's a lot of interest. The game's growing. There's so much individual work, so it's just different. You don't have to go the typical paths, and I think, you know, typical is a pretty good word for hockey. It's kind of been a typical way in a lot of ways. I think a lot of that's changing. So there's a lot of new to it, you know, and a lot of developing things that are going on. And it's not so much, I think it's once you're in a certain area, you see one guy go a certain path and everyone thinks that that's the path, where, you know, that's not really the truth of it. Every path is unique and different. It's not, if you take, you know, I think you get that when you played pro. A lot of people ask you, you know, about your path and they want their kid to do the same. And I always say it's not the same for everybody. Never is going to be the same for everybody. It won't be. There's always going to be different variables. So I think there's a lot. It's like you said about the AJ. You don't have to, again, go to the typical leagues. There's other leagues that are developing where it's a matter of situation, not so much of the same path. It's what situation you can get yourself into. Sometimes as a player, all it takes is a coach to believe in you, or something of that sort, somebody to believe in you and give you that spark and give you that kind of knowledge or confidence. And, that's the thing with a lot of players. They kind of look at the better players with envy instead of looking at them and studying them. It's just in awe of like, oh, they do that. There's no way I could do that. But I think once you have that belief and you understand when I do why I do those breakdowns on, with Connor and the top end players, they're amazing 100%. But if you look at a different view, look at the details, you break down each detail. It's like, can you do that? Yeah. Can you do that part of it? Yeah. Can you do that part of it? Yeah. Can you string it together? That's probably your problem. So that's what we'll work on, is just stringing all those things together. And it's like, well, that's not that hard. It's making it more obtainable. Once you get that belief in your game, and I think it's coming that way, kids are getting super confident, right? The league is so young now. They're hitting that stride at 16, 17, 18 with tons of confidence. And it's not just about the confidence, that they can actually do these things. And, that's a big part of it, though. Believing in yourself and believing that you can do it no matter who's on the ice. Big thing for me is, the rink is the same shape for all of us, and the nets are in the same place for all of us. They're always going to be in the same spot. So it's simplifying it that way and just, finding these patterns that work. And when it comes game time, being able to do it, it's a lot of it's just believing in your game. So no path is the same. And it's more about that. It's believing you can do it, first of all.
So on Facebook last week, we had a question from Michael and my mutual friend. He's a comedian in Edmonton, Lars Callio. He wants to know what your favorite restaurant, and place to hang out or go for drinks in Edmonton was when you were playing there, if you can even remember that. But what do you got?
Yeah, Earl's was it, man. Joey Tomatoes and Earl's, man. That was our spot. We went there every day. Danny Severino and I there every day for lunch and dinner. And then we go back to the Sun place and crawl back in our hotel room. So we didn't have enough. But that year with the Stanley Cup, we got a couple of times we went to the guys' regular restaurants with them. They let us go with them on game day for pregame lunch, and you could see how they were treated and how it was, how the city wrapped around them, and that. It was pretty cool, but I didn't experience it. So I can't even say in a restaurant like that, only Earl's and Joey Tomatoes, but and then the other thing is the West Edmonton Mall. I mean, I'm regretful how much time I spent there, but it was better than sitting in a hotel. It was terrible, but we spent a lot of time there strolling around doing nothing.
What, I have like a goofy ritual every time I'm in Edmonton before I come home. If my skates are, in the vehicle, I go for a twirl on the ice at West Ed. I don't know. I'm an idiot, but that's the showboat in me, I guess. I always do that. I always go for a skate and listen to the iPod, and then because I'm 4 hours away, so that kind of cools me down for the drive home.
So, Rob, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say another year of training. I got called up. There's a guy, Dave Murray. I stuck out. He was a good friend of mine. He lived in up in West Edmonton area, but I spent some time there as well. So it's just getting memories are coming back and thinking about my time there. So, but nothing relevant. Just had a thought and want to spit it out.
I was going to say, I mean, I know you grew up in the New York area. Were you a Rangers or an Islanders fan? And then, getting the chance to go back and play, how exciting was that for you?
Yeah, I was a big Rangers fan. Mike Richter, I wanted to be Mike Richter forever, and doing the split glove saves. And, I took Mark Messier's 1 foot snapper off the right wing probably a million times, against Brodeur. So I was a big fan growing up, had the Rangers jacket, Rangers helmet.
Have you met Messier now?
I have never actually met. I've never met Messier. I never have. Yeah, I met Wayne Gretzky. I made a movie with Wayne when I was 12 years old. Out in California, we did this movie. Wayne Gretzky's Train to Win. So that was pretty cool as a kid to be able to do that and meet him and I would be there for 10 days in Orange County, and it was pretty cool. Tim Conley was he's from my area, and he was with Mike Barnett and the IMG agency. So they needed a kid my age, and I was kind of on the map. And Timmy's like, we'll bring this kid out. So it was awesome. It was great. But I never got a chance to meet Mark Messier. He was he was an idol for a long time of mine.
Yeah. Interesting. Of course, I grew up in Edmonton, and my dad would run into those guys on the regular back when you used to be able to run into NHL guys anywhere in the city. It doesn't really happen anymore. Everybody's kind of, as the game begins to be a little bit more celebrity or pro sports, I think, guys sort of retreat a little bit more. They're not out as much in the public domain as they used to be. But back in those days, seeing my dad was a big horse racing fan, but going down to the horse track and seeing the Stanley Cup in the window at the horse track on the regular was pretty cool. I'll tell you. So I grew up an Oilers fan, and we were, of course, sad as Oilers fans to see Messier. But I saw him the first time he came back in a Rangers uniform to Edmonton, and of course he played in the AJHL. We were talking about that earlier today too. But hell of a player. Hope you get a chance to meet him, because he's just about as great an individual as he was a player, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about the new era too. Is that what you talked about, touchdown? I think that was always part of the pro sports, was being in with the communities, and not to beat around the bush, going out and having beers after the game with the fans and talking hockey, talking shop, and really made it more community than celebrity. And in London, that was a big thing too. When we got to be of drinking age, of course, being out with those people in the community and talking, again, kids our own age, and talking it and making them feel part of it. Or even, sometimes we go to the spot, Joe Cools, and shoot the shit and have a beer with an older guy. And it was such a good feeling to mingle. And then when you win, as you win as a team, it's winning as a community. And I'm sure I'm preaching the choir with how Edmonton was in the 80s, but that was a big part of it, was that, you're so close to it as a fan in that regard, coming to the building and watching the game, but also in the town, going out and having a beer, running into it, these guys, and kind of realizing they're just like anybody else in some regard. Obviously they got a cool gig and playing at the highest level, but when you have a beer with most of the hockey guys, that's kind of the feedback you always got, was what a great guy, or easy to talk to, or, I didn't think whatever, what I'm saying? It's more, hockey guys were always that cut from that cloth. Where now it's tough with social media. You really can't. I don't blame the guys at all. You get all these instances where, the phones are out and videos and pictures and, different versions of what actually really happened. And it's not even worth the headache. You have such a good opportunity as a player. It's really not worth it anymore for someone to ruin it like that. And you've seen some guys that get, gotten some stuff that it wasn't even true, and to be in some of those conversations were horrible things for them to go through, horrible stabs at their character. These kind of things are, not, again, those are the gambles you sort of take these days, going and being that in the limelight. So now it's a lot of video gamers, and they play video games and stay in and drink, and some of the older guys kind of chirp, drinking their protein shakes and playing video games. But that's actually like the big concern now as a coach. It's like, are you going to bed in time? But it's not from staying out. It's from staying in and playing video games. You'd be shutting off your console.
Our Twitch
3 o'clock in the morning.
Our Twitch stream just went crazy, by the way.
Oh boy.
You'd probably sleep better after a few beers than 3 hours of Fortnite too. So
stimulating. It is. It's tough. That's, I think, even that was that's kind of the feedback now. Guys are staying up. Some guys are staying up really late playing Fortnite or playing video games. So different era. The products, everything's changing, right? The game's changing a lot. The product's changing. The interaction with the communities, with the players, everything's changing. So it's a whole different landscape, and where it goes, nobody knows. But it's definitely, we're seeing some pretty electric hockey player these days. And you guys have the best one going in Connor McDavid. So the game's definitely coming to a cool place, and I'm excited about it for sure. I think the fans are as well. You're seeing every single night. There's just highlights that are nuts. The way the guys are, the way they're moving, how fast they're moving, how skilled they are, how fast they execute with that speed. It's fun to watch.
So I think we're getting ready to let you go, but I got to ask you something that's totally off script. Are you in the best shape of your life now? You look pretty good, Rob.
Thanks. I've been doing some CrossFit. My buddy here, Jakob's, family friend, I got dove into that a little bit. So I've been skating a lot. To be honest, I could probably make a comeback.
Let's go.
Yager's still going, right?
People keep saying to me, "You're only 35. Yager's 50." I'm like,
yeah. Hey, before
that guy's on a different level.
I'll say my kind of last words, and I'll let Mike take it from there. But Rob, I can't think of many players who I can say played 7 games for an organization that means so much to Oilers fans. There was something about watching you when you went back to London and just lighting it up that season, like in awe of how you went back, and you took the league by storm that year in the OHL was awesome, and just seeing the creativity with which you played the game. I think it is a testament to the style and creativity of your play. Just that most Oilers fans know who you are. And there's probably a ton of guys that played, 6-7 games and nobody would know who they were. But there's a lot of Oilers fans that definitely know who you are and consider you an Oiler still. And I'm excited that we got the chance to talk to you. And maybe someday I play in a lot of the alumni charity games around Canada when I can. And maybe someday I'll be able to catch you at one and we can shoot the puck around or something. Would be awesome. But great having you on here, and I'll let Mike take it from here.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was actually surprised. I thought you played way more than 7 games with the Oilers. Kind of a little bit of show prep. I'm looking back. I'm like, you only played 7 games? What? You definitely left a mark on me, and kids today, if they go and they YouTube the things you were doing. I mean, I think what Trevor Zegras does is phenomenal. But like I said earlier, like you being able to do that while skating and not like at a standstill, pick up the puck and twirl it around was phenomenal then. It's phenomenal now, and it'll be phenomenal 20 years from now. And what you're doing now is amazing. Like I said, you're like the millennial version of Howie Meeker, breaking down plays and the not using the stopper right there, but just kind of on the fly, showing us kind of inside the mind of McDavid, Draisaitl, and that kind of stuff. It's amazing, and I wish you nothing but success in your personal life with your family and what you're doing now in this stage of your life. Thanks for coming on, Rob. And anytime you want to come back, we'd love to have you. And, thanks again.
No problem, guys. Thanks. I appreciate you thinking of me and reaching out. And I'm happy to come on anytime you guys want. If you want to do a video breakdown someday, I'm happy to. Let me know. I got a pile of clips for you, and we can go over them if the fans want something, whatever. If you want to do some kind of theme for it, I'm happy to do it. So I appreciate you guys having me on again. I love talking hockey, and I wish it was more than 7 games in Edmonton. It was something I was excited about, maybe coming there and making a spark. And it would have been cool to have a guy like Hemsky and a guy like myself maybe to entertain. But it didn't work out that way, and everything happens the way it goes, and that happens the way it does for a reason. So very happy and appreciative of even the chance to be drafted by Edmonton in the first round. But thanks for your time, and thanks for having me on, guys. Honestly, anytime you want anything, reach out, and happy to come back on and do some clips.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I'm just going to end it, Mike, if you don't mind, this way. We're talking hockey, and I've obviously never played NHL, but played on a team called the Fockers in Calgary for a number of years, and we had a guy pass away this morning. A good guy. So it just felt like, it's a worthwhile tribute to do it on one of our shows. JJ, you're a good guy. Gone too soon. Always a teammate. And you guys know anytime you lose a teammate, no matter where it is, it's a big deal. And this guy leaves behind, a couple of young kids and a wife. And hey, I didn't want to bring it up early because it's good. I want to have an awesome and positive show, but this I think is worthwhile because this guy was certainly just a quirky, fun guy. You talk about locker rooms and that, and he was the guy that everybody had a lot of fun with in the locker room with the jokes and everything like that. And we've all had those guys in our locker rooms along the way. And anyway, just wanted to say a quick tribute. And to everybody else, have a great day. And to you, Robbie, have a great night.